Hello and welcome to the official Haters Premier League Roundup Show. I'm your host, Aaron Goldstein, and today, as per usual, I'm joined by Lewis Byron and Aisha Galati as we round up another weekend in the England top flight. 10 games in, the league is starting to take shape. Ruben Amorim will be taking charge of Manchester United in just a few weeks' time after the international break. But for 1 week more, Ruud van Nistelrooy is at the helm at Old Trafford. The Dutchman is looking forward to welcoming Amorim to the club and spoke to haters at full time yesterday.
I look forward to get to know him better, and he obviously done very well in Portugal. He's very young, talented coach, and did well for a long time, over a longer spell in Portugal. So, as I said, looking forward to keep helping the club forward. That's my main goal.
He's looking good, Ruud. Okay, Lewis, first. Amorim's biggest challenge when he takes charge of Man United just after the November international break?
I think it's probably getting all 11 players on the pitch to give everything they have, to give 100% energy going forward and, most importantly, going back. But that's only one of a few, I reckon. There's a lot he's got to change.
Aisha, you're a Man United fan.
I mean, his biggest challenge is not getting sacked, right? This is the
sixth, that's inevitable.
Yeah, it seems to be the sixth permanent manager since Fergie left. He's now been given a contract till 2027. I really, really hope it works out for him, as I've thought with every single manager that has come and gone. In some ways, I feel a bit more optimistic. He is maybe lesser known in the UK than some of the other managers that have been brought into United. And sometimes that's been the problem, almost seeking that big name. But that's not to undermine his abilities at all. I mean, he's got, I believe it's a 70+% win record in his managerial career to date. So got to feel hopeful. But yeah, it'll be about managing that relationship with the owners, which if, you believe everything you hear, that's not an easy thing to do. And the other thing is, like Lewis says, just really reigniting the passion in those players. Ultimately, you see some teams who are really playing and fighting for their manager, and Man United have not been that team recently, and they need to get back to that.
Well, when Ruud was appointed as the assistant manager to Erik ten Hag, I thought, and I think a lot of people did think as well, that he was being brought in as the inevitable replacement for Ten Hag when Ten Hag was inevitably sacked. But that's not the case. We were all wrong. What should Ruud's role be moving forward? He looked to have a promising managerial career. He won a trophy in the Netherlands. What do you think he should do next?
I think it'd be smart by United to keep him involved in the setup. I think he's obviously done well. He's been there with them for the season. So it'd be good to have him around. The only problem then is, does he have ambitions to be the main man somewhere? You don't want him to stay there for a year and then go somewhere else, and then it's like another person who's gone and you've got to replace.
Yeah, I had mixed emotions about this one, because I think it's easy as a United fan to go, just give it to Ruud, like, love to see him have it. But I think maybe Solskjaer was the example of where that didn't quite go to plan, and they're being maybe a little bit more tactful this time. And hopefully he stays in and around the setup. He clearly bleeds Man United. He loves the club. He really, even just watching him on the sideline yesterday, it was just brilliant to see that passion, like really, really brilliant to see. But, we've seen people like Michael Carrick take that sort of second job there and go on to do really great things, but whilst being a huge part of Man United while they're there. So I hope he sticks around for a bit longer. And whether he's the succession plan or ends up going elsewhere, I think he's got to be a positive influence while he's around.
Please do get your questions and comments coming in. But before we get to any of those later on in the show, I've got one for you both. What has happened to Garnacho? He's literally, in my opinion, living off that bicycle kick against Everton last season, because he's rubbish now.
I think that's harsh. I think he's just a product of the environment at the moment, which, we see it. Man United have got good players, been good at previous clubs. As they come in, they're in the environment that's not thriving, and they sort of drop to the level of the club. And I think that's what you're seeing with Garnacho, what you're seeing with most of the players there. So I think that's a little harsh.
Yeah, I think he was unlucky on a couple of occasions yesterday. Maybe could have got a goal. Yeah, you're right. He's not at his sort of firing best. I've never thought he's been amazing, exceptional. I think in the sort of current United setup, he's one of the players that have maybe been standing out a little bit, and he's not doing that at the moment. But that's not really on him, I don't think. I think he's still got that hunger. He's really young. I think he's got loads more to give, and I really hope that Amorim can bring that out of him.
It's kind of crazy for me to say this off the amount of money that United have spent over the last few years, but who do you think they could or should be signing to, get the level, raise the levels?
I mean, if maybe a centre mid, I think with Casemiro at the back end of his career, that could be a good shout. But I don't think that's going to be the answer to United's problems. I think it's about working with the players they do have. Like I mentioned earlier, they're all high quality players and have proven that. It's now how can we get the best out of them as a collective?
Yeah, I don't think the solution can just keep being sign players. There are good enough players at Man United, need to start pulling out their talent or reigniting that talent that they have shown in the past. I think the thing that sort of doesn't sit great with me is the striker situation. We've been talking about trying to fill that void and really get an out-and-out striker for a long time. And Kane was linked with United at one point, which would have been amazing. Ivan Toney, I think he would have been great. I just don't think Højlund has been that person that we're looking for yet. He's young. I don't want to write him off yet, but I think he needs to be a little bit better.
I think a little bit better is you being polite.
He needs to be a lot better, but so does the rest of the team too.
Very fair. I mean, United now sit 13th, 12 points. What's their ceiling this season?
Their ceiling, I think the best they could hope for is around 6th. I can't see them, even if things turn around very quickly, I can't see them getting better than 6th, maybe 5th. So that would be a good thing to aim for, I think.
Yeah, I actually think 6th is pushing it. I'm not sure United will make 6th. I mean, just get top half of the table at this rate.
I don't think they will, but that's the max.
Yeah, it's weird because our generation, we just saw United win the league every year as kids. So a little bit of me is thinking this is great to see them struggling. They deserve it. You can't have all the glory, and hopefully Man City go on a bit of a spiral as well. Anyway, as for Chelsea, they sit in the top 4 thanks to Moises Caicedo's stunner. They do seem to be a force to be reckoned with this year, let's be real. And despite earning a solid point, Enzo Maresca was not happy with Lisandro Martinez's tackle on Cole Palmer.
In the changing room with Dice, so we are waiting now. Hopefully it's nothing important. And then I know that you are going to ask me about the referee decision. They show me before the press conference. I think it's quite clear, but it's quite clear almost for all of us. But the referee is there to take a decision, and he took a different decision.
Is that what you were talking about at the end when you went onto the pitch?
Yeah, I just said that for me, when there is not intention to go for the ball and you just go for the player, it's red.
It's the second time this season that Lisandro has escaped a red card after, I don't even know if you can call it a challenge or a tackle. It's reckless and it's nuts and it's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's reckless, but it's repeating now with him. He's one of them players where if I was playing against him, I'd want to just try and avoid because I feel like I'm going to get my leg broken. And the fact that he's not getting red carded for these is it's not right because he's staying on the pitch too long and he's not having an effect on making him not want to do that anymore. So yeah, I agree. I think he needs to be cautioned more.
Do you think that they should be bringing in retrospective bans if the referee's not giving a yellow or a red during the 90 minutes or gone to VAR, but it's clear as day to see? Do you think they should be able to go back?
Yeah, I think so. There's got to be a punishment for that. You can't keep getting away with that, week in, week out, because it's endangering the players. And if he connects badly with one of them, which is very easy to do, then a player could be out for a year.
Yeah, it was a reckless challenge. I think there should be punishment. And I wouldn't be opposed to retrospective punishment too. But I think the fact that he's doing it again and again is kind of irrelevant because I think each one would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. It wouldn't be like, Martinez is the problem here. There's more players that do it, but in principle, yeah.
Yeah, it was just the Crystal Palace one a couple of weeks ago. It was absolutely crazy. He's flying in, 2 legs off the ground. I just feel a bit squeamish. As for Chelsea, top 4 for sure?
No, not for sure. I think the 3rd and 4th spots, there's probably 4 teams, 5 with Forest in and around it now. So no, not for sure. I think it's going to go down to the wire with them.
Yeah, I don't think anything's for sure this season. I think that no one's really stand out, and I think it's all to play for. And I think, as Chelsea showed at the weekend a little bit, that if Cole Palmer's not on it, it's not the same Chelsea. So it is going to be a lot down to keeping Cole Palmer fit and playing all these games, but also just making sure he's on it.
Well, Chelsea have done the right thing. They've kept Cole Palmer out of their Conference League squad, so he's not going to have the overload of games that we've seen other clubs do with some players. Cough Mikel Arteta with Saka and Declan Rice. Arsenal are literally up next for Chelsea, a game that will allow either side to pull away from the other one. They're level on points at the moment. Do you think Chelsea will be relishing the opportunity of playing an Arsenal side that don't look great?
Yeah, they've caught Arsenal at a good time, I think. Arsenal are just a bit disjointed at the times, reluctant to change their style if things aren't going well. And a lot of players are changing position, changing their roles week in, week out. So yeah, Chelsea they've got a good chance.
Yeah, you talk about trying to catch teams at a good time, though. I think Chelsea really should have taken advantage of that Manchester United team yesterday. It's turmoil. The club's not in a good place, and that they could have left with a lot more than a point, I think.
It's kind of crazy. This season's been really weird because Chelsea, again, they look really good. Everyone's talking about them in a good position. They failed to beat, was it Crystal Palace? They failed to beat Forest. They failed to beat United. Teams are dropping loads of points. And the team that potentially is going to benefit from that most, Liverpool, they're top of the pile after coming from behind to beat Brighton. Arne Slot's side have faced Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, but a lot of people are still saying they haven't faced a real test. Is that fair?
They've probably, if you compare to the teams around them, they've definitely had the easier run. But you can only beat what's in front of you, and they're getting the job done at the moment. Like you said, the standard around is not great, not what we're used to seeing. I thought with the Chelsea and United game, the standard was very poor for most of the game. Simple 5-10 yard passes from both teams, misplaced a lot. And one thing I like with Liverpool, they can start a game bad and they can change up half time and finish a game really well. And I don't see other teams doing that. So, they've had an easier running, but like I said, you can only beat what's in front of you.
Yeah, they've been impressive, to be honest. Like, even against maybe lesser opposition, whatever you might call it, it still takes a lot to come back from being behind and beating Brighton in the way they did. I thought it was a really great performance from them. And like you say, just shows how the manager is prepared to mix things up to get the desired results.
I mean, Liverpool have a much trickier run to come in both the Premier League and Europe over the next few weeks. They've got the likes of Real Madrid, Leverkusen, Manchester City. So I think we will see what's in store for them by Christmas time. What I will say is Mo Salah scored the winning goal, and he doesn't really say much on social media. However, to his 63 million followers on Instagram, he's posted this, celebrating in front of the Kop. Top of the table is where this club belongs. Nothing less. All teams win matches, but there's only one champion in the end. That's what we want. Thank you for your support last night. No matter what happens, I will never forget what scoring at Anfield feels like. Lots to digest there. Number one, he's posted a bit about being top a bit early. It's only November. That's we've seen Liverpool fall from grace before. I wouldn't jinx it too early, Mo. But the ending of that, there's been so much discussion about Mo Salah leaving Anfield. Obviously, his contract runs out at the end of the season. Will Liverpool offer him a new one? Will he leave? It just sounds a bit up in the air to me. It was a very cryptic message.
Yeah, I don't think that's him saying, I want to leave or I'm going to leave. Like you said, I think he's probably unsure whether he will be here next season or not. And he's emotional after the game, and he probably just wants to express how he's feeling. I don't think you should read too much into it. It's just the fact he's probably 50-50 whether he's going to be here next season.
Yeah, I think there's another part to it as well, actually, that sometimes, he can, over the last few years, people have been saying, is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Maybe potential criticism, he's not as good as he used to be. But I think he's also just saying, like, look, guys, I'm still as good as ever, and I still score the winners. And that is what makes him, one of the Premier League's best of all time.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, because now if Salah does leave Liverpool, either in January for money or at the end of the season for free, what do they do? How do you replace one of the best ever? He's overtaken, I think, was it Robbie Fowler? He's gone into the top 8 scorers in Premier League history. He's really chasing Thierry Henry's tail. Mo Salah's one of the best of all time.
Yeah, it's going to be near on impossible to replace him to get a winger who's producing them numbers so consistently for that amount of time. I mean, who else is doing it really at the moment? You can't. I don't. Saka's still not quite there, unfortunately. So yeah, it's going to be a big miss if he does go, and it's a big question who they're going to get to replace him.
Yeah, they've got to try and keep him. Got to keep him. He's only 32. Like, that's not as ancient as people are trying to make us believe. He's still got a lot left in him, and Liverpool should do everything they can to try and keep him.
Manchester City have won 4 Premier League titles in a row, but Pep Guardiola, like Sir Alex Ferguson, has failed to replicate Arsene Wenger's feat of going an entire league campaign unbeaten. Bournemouth were the masterminds behind City's first league defeat of the season, and Guardiola, like his team, looked tired at full time.
His intensity, all the situation long balls, we could not win it. And when you don't win this type of balls to Semenyo or central defenders, strikers, after you had to defend deeper, we struggled to make our build up. But especially for that, the rhythm that they put in the game, for many reasons, they were higher than us, and we could not handle it.
Let's speak candidly here for a second. A lot had been looking likely for City.
Yeah, definitely. They've been getting some close results, and it was coming 100%. They've looked tired, as Pep was saying, but that, for me, that's just proved the point of how simple it is. I say simple it is to win a football match at the moment. I just feel like the team that's putting in the most energy from the first whistle and maintaining that are the teams that's winning.
Yeah, they lost it's their first loss in 11 months. Like, it's crazy. It is really crazy that they've been able to do that. And yeah, I think it feels maybe like a bit of a turning point, because in these matches which have been really close, they've been finding that equaliser or finding that winner right at the end. And actually in this match, you kind of thought it was coming. There were those 2 really close moments. I think Haaland hit the post, and then Foden hit it, and it like literally skimmed the post by an absolute whisker. And you just think like, wow, it's not always going to go their way, and maybe this is the point where it starts to turn. So yeah, the wheels are off, and maybe someone else might win the league.
I think you can read into it a bit too much as well, though, because like you said, they did have a few chances with Haaland at the end, and it's a game of fine margins where 2 inches more to the left and it's a goal, 2 inches to the right, and you've missed and lost your first game in however long. So you can read into it a little bit too much, I think.
We're 10 games into the season, and out of those 10 games, City have conceded first in 5 of those. Their 32-game unbeaten run has come to an end. They struggled against Arsenal. They barely got by against Wolves, etc., etc. It's been tough for them. But let's stop dampening on Manchester City and go on to Bournemouth, because they were brilliant, and a player that Pep even mentioned in his conference, Antoine Semenyo, you've played with.
Yeah, I have. When we were kids, we played with each other, and yeah, I still speak to him to this day. He, I mean, one thing he's actually said to me with what Iraola says to the Bournemouth players is he wants them just to, from minute 1, give absolutely everything. Don't hold anything back, defensively and attacking. And if you have to come off in the 60th minute because you're too tired, that's fine. He doesn't mind that. He just doesn't want you to hold anything back. And I think that's why they're doing so well at the moment. I looked at Chelsea and United, and they lacked energy. Liverpool in the first half, they lacked energy. As soon as they started putting a bit more energy into the game, they turned it around. So for me, that's the key. That's what I'm seeing every weekend. Whatever team puts more in is getting more out.
It is true. I mean, one thing I'd also touch on is the goals seem to be drying up for Erling Haaland. He scored 10 goals in the opening 5 games of the season and just 1 in the 5 to follow. Do we have ourselves a golden boot race?
Yeah, we do. But then in 3 weeks' time, he could have got 2 hat-tricks and then it's all over again. So again, I'm not being too reactionary. Yeah, it's fine margins.
As you just said, it's only November.
So City still your favourites despite their first loss of the season?
No, they're not my favourites.
Ooh.
I just think, like you said, the results, the performances haven't been good. The loss has been coming. I think there's I'll probably edge Liverpool just ahead of them now, but I think Arsenal are still in it, and I think Liverpool and City are the other 2.
I agree that it's those 3, but I would still put my money on City. They just know how to do it.
I don't know. I think it could be the time we see the mighty fall.
I think you're nuts to go anyone other than City. They've shown it time and time again. And look, as we said, Liverpool haven't faced their real tests yet. The third team in the equation that you've given, Arsenal, they fell to their second defeat of the season. And look, let's be honest here, useless at St James's Park. It was revealed this morning that Edu will be leaving the Emirates with Arteta's men now 7 points from top. Are they a club in turmoil? Mikel Arteta was asked about Arsenal's slow start to the season.
9-10 games last year we didn't, and we're not going to be talking about it now. It's about how we react that. We're not going to find the right answers or words right now to describe as well how we feel. We certainly have to put it on that field on Wednesday night against Inter.
Wednesday night against Inter. It sounds like a tricky test to me. Are Arsenal in trouble?
They've been unlucky with injuries, but again, all teams will go through this, so I don't think that's an excuse. If you want to win a title, you have to be able to navigate these situations well and keep the morale in the team high. So I don't think Arsenal fans should panic too much. I would have liked to see more against Newcastle, a change in style, a change in system. But I'm still hopeful for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think turmoil is overstating it. It's still early in the season, and in terms of Edu leaving, I mean that's a huge shock. I think from the sounds of it, no one at Arsenal was expecting it, and he's been instrumental. I think he joined in the summer of 2019, and that's sort of since then to now is the period where Arsenal have really got good again. So that's no coincidence that he's been a part of that and has been instrumental in signing, players like Declan Rice, Timber, Ben White. Plenty more on the list. I'm sure you guys will.
This is the thing with my opinion on Edu, is that he did more for Arsenal as a player than he did as a sporting director, for sure. As a sporting director, Edu has made countless mistakes. He often gets criticised for, having a barbecue on transfer deadline day. What are you doing? Get out there. He goes for a transfer target after transfer target, misses them, and then, the second choice has come in and succeeded. So by all means, well done that it's worked. I don't think it's going to be as big a loss as some people are expecting it to be. I think Arsenal fans and the media are loving the fact that Arsenal have just lost again. And something's going wrong, and they can latch onto that. I'm just going to turn the narrative very quickly. I want to be positive here. Martin Odegaard's back soon. Makes a difference to the whole club, the whole vibe.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think going into this season, Arsenal had had near enough an 11 which we'd stuck with for a while, and everyone had got used to the style of play, got used to how each other play and the players around them. Recently, we've had a lot of players chopping and changing where they're playing in the team. Left backs playing centre backs, centre mids playing out wide. So to change that, players having different roles every single week of the leagues, I think it's really hard to constantly change your mindset and what you have to give out to the team. So once that sort of settles down a bit, we get a few players back, I think Arsenal will be in a good place.
Well, I mean, Arsenal have Inter Milan and Chelsea away in the coming days, so let me be bipolar here and go back to being negative. Two very possible losses looming. When do the Arteta outshouts start?
No, I'm not having any of Arteta outshouts. if people genuinely think that, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, 2019 he come in and the club's just been transformed so quickly, like over 3-4 years. To get rid of him after a little bad spell when we've had players playing out of position, never playing together before, it's just... that is what I call reactionary.
Reactionary is true.
Yeah, I mean, Arteta outcries would be absolutely crazy. I hate manager outcries in any context, but for a manager that has come so close to winning the league and could still potentially do it this season, like, it would be absolutely mad. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see the next steps for him. And I know you're saying the Edu thing's not a big deal, but Edu and Arteta have this friendship, and there's people saying, will Arteta follow where Edu goes? I don't think it's quite like that. But, there's clearly some sort of dynamic there that is going to now be lost.
I can guarantee you now we will not see Mikel Arteta as manager of Nottingham Forest anytime soon. But I think the big thing about Arsenal losing Edu is not the expertise. It's not the sporting director like prowess and finesse that he brings to the table. It's the vibes. Sport is not just the 11 players on the pitch, because if it was always just the best 11 players playing other 11 players, the best 11 would always win. And that's not how football works. A lot of football, a lot of sport, a lot of life is psychological. And I think it's the vibe that changes at Arsenal. And that's the problem. Anyway, Aisha, have we had any good questions come through?
We have indeed. Sean Bauer has said, Man United have a cycle of players to move on and replace. It's going to take time. So that's an interesting take, because we were thinking that actually we've got to just use the players that United have already got.
I think they 4 or 5 years ago, they had a cycle of players to replace and they replaced them. And we're here now saying the same thing. So I don't think it's as simple as replace these older players and bring in some new ones and that's it. We're sorted. It's a lot more than that.
Theo Gunners has said, Liverpool have no depth, 2 injuries and they are done.
2 injuries and they are done.
Depends who.
Yeah, it depends who those 2 are. I mean, Arsenal have had more than 2 injuries. Are Arsenal done? You don't think so? I do, personally.
2 injuries and they're done. I don't know. Listen, that's what you got. A lot of winning a league and winning games of football, especially at this level, any percentages you can get, you take. And if you have players if you have a team, that are not getting injured, that's a big advantage to have.
Kwame has said, Edu failed to get us a striker during the summer and he brought in Sterling. Thoughts?
I mean, failed to get a striker. I suppose he did. But I also like the fact that with Arsenal, they don't go above and beyond out of what their budget, let's say, their budget of what they want for a player. They're not just going to go out of their way to get him, if that makes sense.
No,
a Chelsea, like a United, they're not going to pay over the top. They stick to what they want, and if they can't get them at that price, they'll leave them.
There is no denying that since Edu and Arteta have come to the fold at Arsenal Football Club since 2019, Arsenal have been on an uphill trajectory. You can't deny that, and if you are trying to deny that, you're an idiot. But that's not really the question here. Edu has, and it's been clear, gone out to find strikers in the past. We've seen him try to get Vlahovic, Sesko, and he's failed time and time again. Yes, Kai Havertz has been fantastic for Arsenal, and lots of people didn't expect that. But that's not the point that the commenters are making. It's not the point that debatably I'm making. It's that as a sporting director, he has failed with target number 1 so many times, and plan B has worked. But how many times can you go to plan B before it fails?
I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, you have to have a value of a player you're after. You set him at that value. This is what I think you're worth. If all of a sudden someone's coming in and saying, no, he's double that, you can't just then change your whole approach to that situation and give him a lot more money.
What if that player is the difference between finishing second to Manchester City and winning a Premier League title?
Yeah, well, if that's a guarantee, then of course they would, but it's not, is it?
Nothing's a guarantee. But I think Arsenal have messed up countless times in the transfer market over the past few seasons, and it's all down to the psychological side of Arsenal Football Club now.
What are you complaining about? Who do you want to have signed?
There's no complaining and making a statement. But had Arsenal signed Benjamin Sesko in the summer, had they signed Vlahovic, then we would not be seeing Leandro Trossard fail flapping around in the Martin Odegaard role at St James's Park. Kai Havertz will be playing there in a position he can play. The experiments are failing sometimes.
I think you're forgetting the other signings, though, that have been pretty good. Odegaard, Rice, Timber. What about those?
Okay, one second. Odegaard and Rice, brilliant signings. And again, we don't want to go all down the Arsenal route forever and ever. But let's think about players that have succeeded at Arsenal. Again, so I'm going to be positive here. Leandro Trossard has been a hit. There was that crazy tweet that has been viral today saying all of the players that Arsenal signed under Edu, and they've either been hits or misses. And someone said Trossard was a miss. Wrong. Trossard has been a massive hit. But it was a failure to sign Mudryk that led to that. Yes, Mudryk's been a disaster. That's not the point, though. Arsenal have signed very well as making countless mistakes.
Okay, one final comment we've got. DK has said Garnacho's ball IQ is bad. The environment is not going to fix that. And then a shout out to Theo Gunners for contributing to pay for a super chat. Just a reminder that you can do that on the channel. Shout out to Theo Gunners.
We will have some more questions a little later on in the show, and we can resume the Edu debate, I'm sure. Tottenham, though, Arsenal's North London rivals, they're this season's top scorers thanks to their 4-1 win over former Arsenal manager Unai Emery's Aston Villa yesterday afternoon. Dominic Solanke notched a brace and an assist, a fantastic afternoon for the England international, but Ange's press conference was worthy of the Grand National.
The table only is important for me at the end of the year. While we're sort of running in the race, you're not really looking. I don't like looking either side of me. I keep saying to the players, if I was a racehorse, and I'm not, it'd be one with blinkers, mate, just looking at the finish line.
Bruce, to finish, please.
I think that's right. I don't even know about horse racing. I talk about stuff I don't know about. Anyway, go, sorry.
Brand new information. Ange Postecoglou, not a racehorse. Topsy-turvy Tottenham. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe something else. Can Spurs stay consistent, or is that too big an ask?
Yeah, I think that clip just proves the point I've been making over recent weeks, in the fact that he's a bit reluctant to adapt at times. I think it's good to sort of have the blinkers on at times and to just stick to what you're doing and the process of how you're going to play. But there are times where, you know, you do need to have a look around you. Who are you playing? You might be playing 20th in the table or top of the table, especially as the season comes closer to an end. You do need to take them factors into account and adapt how you're going to play to that game.
I think the way Spurs play, it makes it quite hard for them to be consistently good week in, week out. It makes for some very exciting watching, I would say. And that match, 4-1, like winning the way they did, it was brilliant to watch as a neutral. But it was, I just don't think you can consistently keep that up just because of this sort of nature of how they're playing at the moment.
Aston Villa dropped points in successive games with a League Cup exit sandwiched in between. They face Liverpool next. Were they going through a bit of a purple patch?
I don't know. It's been a couple games. I still think they've looked okay. I thought it was pretty even in the Tottenham game for the majority of it until the goals started flooding in. So yeah, purple patch. I suppose they are. It's a short patch.
Do they care if they're top of the Champions League table?
They're not going to win it.
Who knows? Stranger things have happened.
Look, the biggest, most exciting race, in my opinion, this season is the race for relegation or to avoid relegation. The scrap is really fascinating, and the bottom six all faced each other in 3 key games this weekend. Wolves remain winless after they failed to beat Crystal Palace, while Southampton claimed their first victory of the season as they beat Everton. Ipswich and Leicester played out a 1-1 draw, which leaves 7 points, separating 15th from 20th. Let's hear your bottom 3 predictions. Have they changed?
Mine have changed a bit. I think Southampton and Ipswich are solid, in my opinion. And I reckon it's between Wolves, probably Wolves. I can see West Ham being in and around it. I think they've been very poor and that they don't look to be getting any better. So I'd probably say them. I think Leicester will stay up.
I hope Leicester stay up, but I don't know. I think Wolves have looked poor. I mean, they're obviously sat right at the bottom of the table, I think, on 3 points. But they really have shown real elements of fight.
Yeah,
and I think if they keep doing that, hopefully they'll find something to keep them up. But as it stands, I'm thinking the bottom 3 are going to go down. So Ipswich, Southampton, and Wolves.
It's crazy. I think the relegation scrap this season has been fantastic. Ipswich have looked good in parts. Yeah. Everton, I don't think are in the question. Leicester, Southampton, they're almost guaranteed for me. And we shall see.
No one's mentioned Palace.
I think Wolves actually, like you said, Wolves have been looking a bit better of recent, but then so have Palace. Palace have looked good their last few games. So I think they just caught Palace at an awkward time. So I don't think that 2-2 draw is as bad as it looks on paper.
Is that a bit of I've been at Crystal Palace since I'm 8 years old bias there? Or
no, I can't see Palace going down.
You've got to have the faith.
Yeah.
We do need to talk about this season's surprise package, Nottingham Forest. They finished just above the relegation zone last year, but they are now flying. 3rd in the league, having beaten Liverpool at Anfield, and they've lost just once. This weekend, they tore West Ham apart, and the question is obvious. Can they keep it up?
As long as Chris Wood keeps it up, I reckon they can. Not 3rd, but I reckon they'll finish in a high position in the table. Yeah, they're looking good. And like I said, if Chris Wood keeps scoring every time he shoots, then I think they'll be good.
They've got to be going for European football as they're playing now. The club just looks in a really great place. You know, the manager seems to have just brought that group of players together in such a great way. They're playing great football, loving how they're playing on the pitch. Like, they're clearly having a great time together. I mean, you would be if you were doing that well. They've got 3 successive victories for the first time in the top flight since 1999, which is pretty impressive stuff. And yeah, long may it continue.
And it's only going to get better now. EDU's at the helm. Is Nuno an underappreciated manager? I think personally that his whole name was tarnished due to his spell at Tottenham. I think he's a very good manager.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's top, and I think that spell at Tottenham is harsh to judge him by. He come in when the atmosphere and the environment at Tottenham wasn't great. There was a lot of negative opinions on it, and he didn't have a long time there. To be honest, I know he didn't do great, but I don't think it'd be fair to judge him off that Tottenham spell.
Yeah, it's a different type of club as well. I think when you're going into, it's maybe slightly less pressure. When you're taking on a club like, I know he did really well with Wolves, and now doing really well with Forest, and that comes with less eyeballs than that Spurs job. And I think that has allowed him the time to just flourish again and show exactly what he can do.
Fair enough. Let's go on to tonight's game. Brentford travel to the Cottage to face their biggest rivals, Fulham. Any predictions for that?
I predict goals. I know Brentford are very good at scoring goals, and Fulham are actually quite good at stopping them. But I think Fulham will edge it at home. I'm going to go 2-1 Fulham. Smith Rowe goal.
I'm going to go with a Brentford win. I think I'll go with 2-1 Brentford and Mbeumo to score a few more.
You've gone Fulham win. You've gone Brentford win. I'm going for draw. Brentford are very good at scoring. They're not very good at defending. They've literally scored 18, conceded 18. They are nuts. They're chaos. Monday Night Football is going to be fantastic viewing. Any more questions coming in, Aisha? Are we going to resume that debate, or have you got something else for us?
Yeah, we've got a question from Dazboy. He has said, Man City look woeful without Rodri this year. They genuinely might not even finish top 4. I wouldn't bet on it just yet, but I promise you it's not that crazy. Thoughts?
I think they're gonna finish top 4, but I do agree they have had a massive drop off when with Rodri out the team. I said it at the start of the season, they'll drop off, and they have. When Rodri previously was out the team for a couple months, I think it was night and day with him and without him. So yeah, I think not getting the top 4, I think, is a bit of a stretch, but yeah, certainly not as consistent as we used to see.
I sort of understand it, because I think City will either win the league like usual, or they'll crumble. They'll fall apart. If they don't, if they go 5-6 points behind Liverpool, 7 points, and it becomes unattainable, they're going to win the title. Morale's going to drop, and they're just going to fall apart. I understand where he's coming from. I think they'll get top 4, but I get it.
E. Ross has said, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Love Arsenal, but after 20 plus years of not winning major honours, it gets old. I'm sorry.
It does get old. Yes. I think Arsenal need to win a title very, very, very soon. And I don't think Edu has any part in making that dream a reality. I think that is on Mikel Arteta and the players. Edu sits in the desk.
Yeah, I think we also need to remember how long of a period Arsenal had of not being a top side. So it's the same thing I'm seeing with United as well. Every time United have a bad game, it sort of gets brought up of how good they were 20 years ago. But United aren't that team anymore. Arsenal aren't that team anymore. And it's time to go from what we're seeing now or of recent years. Yeah,
and that's to Chris Gooner's point, who said trophies are difficult to get. Only one team can get it. And finally, DK has said, yes, Rice is a good signing, but for 100 mil, I expect way better passing and scoring or creating. He's just a CDM. And I think Partey hasn't even been better at that this season.
I think 100 mil, I think the price these days, there's so many different factors that come into it. It's not as black and white as how good is this player, he's worth this much. It's contract lengths, it's how much he's worth to the club they're coming from. So it's hard to judge just off the price tag. But I think last season he produced a good number of goals from a central midfield position. I think he gives a lot going forward and defensively. So I think he's been a good signing. He's been a huge part of making Arsenal as good as they are.
Yeah, I massively, massively disagree that there can be any Declan Rice slander. He's been playing in the 6 as well. Yeah. Been less creative going forward. A fully fit Arsenal team, and I say this with chest, Arsenal's 11, best 11 on paper, beats any 11 in the world. I think Arsenal's starting 11 is fantastic. I think Mikel Arteta has developed a team there that can go out and beat anybody if they can consistently stay together. It just doesn't work like that, and therefore it might crumble. We will see. That's all for today. We'll see you next week ahead of what feels like the 50th international break of the season. Plenty of Champions League action over the